Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men issue 132, cover dated April 1980. The cover is by John Byrne, inked by Terry Austin, and it features the Hellfire Club Inner Circle victorious over the X-Men, but not all of them, because who, of course, is missing from the pile of X-Men on the carpeted floor, except for Wolverine. So we'll see how that is the case when we get into the issue itself. This cover is tremendously detailed. Love all the work in the background as well for the ornate fixtures and fittings of the Hellfire Club mansion, including the curtains there, the window, the little details of the furniture, the table that Jason Wingard is sitting on. Byrne really putting all of the work into his pencils on this particular page. One other thing to note is the winner of the 5 Eagle Awards notice there under the cover corner box, and that is a reminder, of course, that Chris Claremont and John Byrne were born, both of them, in England before moving to North America. And Claremont in particular had a fond memory of reading Eagle comics in the 1950s in England before moving to the US. And also, I believe his aunt ensured that he had a continuing supply of English comics while he was growing up in Long Island of New York State. And so you notice during his original 6-year run, every year or so, we have these notices of how many Eagle Awards have been won, and it's intriguing that it's basically Claremont who is, I would say, requiring that be trumpeted on the covers because of his English connection and his fondness for the place of his birth. Let's open this one up now to the splash page. There are once again 17 pages of story and art in this issue, and once again it is extraordinary how much Byrne and Claremont fit into those 17 pages. But we start as always with a splash page. The title of this particular issue is "And Hellfire Is Their Name," and the creative team up here: Chris Claremont and John Byrne, co-plotters Claremont writer, Byrne penciler, Terry Austin on inks, Tom Orzechowski on letters, and Glynis Wein on the colors. So really the dream team of Uncanny X-Men. And the third person narrator declares, in New Mexico, along the Continental Divide, literally miles from anywhere, stands a very special house owned by a very special young man. He was christened Warren Worthington III, heir apparent to one of America's larger private fortunes. In later years, he became somewhat better known as the High-Flying Angel, one of the founding members of the Uncanny X-Men. So, of course, John Byrne, in particular, a fan of the original 5 X-Men. It's, I would guess, on it's his idea for the X-Men to hook up with Angel here. And there is an in-story reason too, and we'll get to that in the coming few pages. So Angel greets Cyclops. Scotty, long time no see, old buddy. Welcome to Angel's eerie X-Men, my home away from home. So it's intriguing to note how this issue begins in the sky with the Angel touching down, and it ends in a very different and much, much lower place, which I will point out when we get to the last panel of this particular issue. So we have the new X-Men there as well. They've never met Angel before. Or sorry, they have, but they haven't seen him in a long time since the beginning of Claremont's run on the title. Let's turn the page here and see yet another excellent establishing shot from Byrne in terms of the little knots of characters, who's standing with whom, who's curious, like Nightcrawler there, curious about Angel and Cyclops' handshake, Professor X off to the side, Wolverine leaning against a railing there, away from the group. And then we have our little pieces of dialogue. So Scott says, "Thanks for taking us in, Warren, especially on such short notice." And Angel replies, "My pleasure. Besides, it's good to see you again. Make yourselves comfortable, group. My home is yours." And Colossus, ever polite, says, "It is a beautiful home, Angel, and beautiful country," as he looks around the New Mexico mountains. But Wolverine has something to say, patriotic Canadian that he is. "Colossus, these hills ain't nothing compared to the rocky the Canadian Rockies. Now that's beautiful country. And here we get an interesting panel with Jean and Angel kissing on the lips. And of course, it's a reminder that in Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's original issues of X-Men, Warren Worthington was a rival of Scott's for Jean's affections. So she says to him, "You're looking good, Blondie," and he replies, "You're not so bad yourself, Red." He enjoys the kiss. We keep this up, he says, and we're liable to make Scott jealous. But Angel has a girlfriend of his own, and that is Candy Southern, whom he introduces. She says hi, and keep it up, Wings. And Scott is the least of your worries, so she's got some spirit. But it was all in good fun, these old friends. And Angel here says, "Okay, Scott, what brings you to this neck of the woods? You sounded pretty serious on the phone." And Scott says, I don't mean to be rude, Warren, but could we talk somewhere private?" This is another great shot here where Angel lifts Cyclops up under the arms, up into the air. "What there, Warren?" He takes him by surprise. "Privacy you want, privacy you got." And I love the top-down view here where we get to see Warren's car collection. He's got a red sports car, and he's got something like a limousine car as well. And there's the X-Men's aircraft as well from that top-down view. So Byrne putting lots and lots of thought into the pencils here, giving us lots of information if we want to linger over these panels and think a little bit more about what we're seeing. And we have Professor X, and he's watching after Angel taking Cyclops away. And he thinks to himself, "First, Scott disobeyed my instructions by bringing the X-Men here instead of to our New York headquarters. And now he flies off with Angel without even a word of explanation. I do not understand why he's behaving so strangely, and I do not like it." And there has been this conflict between the Professor and Cyclops since issue 129. And outside of the story itself, it has to do with the fact that neither Claremont nor Byrne thought that the X-Men needed Professor X as a mentor anymore because they've all grown up. But Claremont and Byrne are making story capital out of Jim Shooter's requirement that the Professor be back in the X-Men's lives as headmaster of the School for Gifted Youngsters. So Warren flies them up to a butt. And Warren, is this trip really necessary? Asks Cyclops. "Can't get more private than this, Scott. No one listening at the keyhole, no one even in sight. And no hidden microphones after all. Who's going to bug a butt? We're alone, Scott. What's on your mind?" So now Cyclops confides with his old teammate. "Someone's after the X-Men." And Angel replies, "So what else is new? Someone's always after the X-Men." But Scott retorts, "This is different." And then we get a catch-up for any new readers of what's been happening since issue 129, the whole business of being attacked by the Hellfire Club in Chicago, Kitty Pryde, the intervention of Dazzler. And let's continue here, get past the advertisements. If I can open up the page here, yes. And then the fight between the White Queen and Jean Grey. And what Scott says is interesting. Jean Phoenix fought the White Queen in a psychic duel. "I wanted the woman taken alive for questioning, but in the end, she preferred suicide to capture." Now that's interesting because it wasn't clear in the previous issue that the White Queen had committed suicide, unless Cyclops means that loosely and he's covering for Phoenix in respect of the White Queen taking on Phoenix and Phoenix basically destroying her, and therefore it being a type of what's called obligate suicide, that she went up against a foe that she couldn't possibly beat and was defeated and destroyed in the conflict. Cyclops here, with his hand on his chin, thoughtful, he says, "Phoenix mind scanned a guard, and we learned that the White Queen belonged to a group of industrialists out to rule the world. They see mutant kind and the X-Men as a means to achieving that goal. They call themselves the Hellfire Club." And I love the look of surprise on Warren's face there. That's really well done, as well as the little cartooning body language there of the parallel lines and the little dashes. So it's intriguing, giving us a sense of a head shake from Warren in surprise. And then he says, "Are you sure? I'm a member of the Hellfire Club. So's Candy. I inherited the membership along with Worthington Industries when my folks passed away. It's an old, very stuffy," and then I like this little parenthetical remark, "yet risque establishment club. Candy and I visited it once," he says, before I told the world I was the angel. We didn't like it. We never went back. So the implication is they didn't actually like the risque element of it, or did they like that part but didn't like the stuffy part? In any case, they didn't go back. Whatever your White Queen learned about the X-Men, it wasn't from me. So Cyclops now, I like this kind of Byrne body language where he's got his chin in his hand there and then his hand at the back of his head. Cyclops does a lot of that when he's thinking. And I wonder, is that something Byrne does himself? Is that where he gets it from? Or did he observe someone else in his life doing it? Anyway, Cyclops says, there has to be a leak somewhere, Warren. These people knew our powers, our plans, the way we fight, the way we think. And the leak is that their computer system has been bugged. And so the Hellfire Club have been observing the X-Men training in the Danger Room, and they know what's going on when Cerebro identifies mutants for them. So what happens is Jean interrupts the conversation just as Cyclops was about to confide in Warren about Jean's strange behavior of late. You can see her arcing across the sky here. She's coming like a bullet towards the boot, and or is it butt? And she just arrives at the point that her name is mentioned. Someone mentioned my name. You fellas have been talking for hours. Time for a break. And she's come with a picnic basket. Angel knows that Jean wants privacy with Cyclops. All of a sudden, I have the feeling I'm not wanted, he says. Perceptive lad, you'll go far, says Jean. I aim to Jeannie. We'll finish our talk later, Scott. Be seeing you. So Cyclops waves goodbye to Angel. And he says to Jean, running a multi-million-dollar business has been good for Angel. He's lost none of his fire, his passion, but he's steadier inside, a lot surer of himself. He's grown up. And Jean responds as she telekinetically transforms her clothes. We've all grown up, Scott. And again, that is Claremont and Byrne's thinking about the X-Men at this time. But Scott there is slightly freaked out about her rearranging the monocles of her outfit into civilian clothes. And he wonders why he finds it so disconcerting. Why shouldn't Jean use her side powers to make her life easier, he thinks. You're brooding, she says to him. It's what I do best, and I've got a lot on my mind, he says. Didn't you hear me? It's time for a break. Stop being Cyclops, leader of the X-Men, she replies, for a while. Try being Scott Summers, lover of Jean Grey. Who knows, you might even enjoy yourself. So she removes his visor, and of course he's worried if I open my eyes even fractionally without the visor's ruby quartz shield to contain my optic blasts. But here is something that is intriguing. Open your eyes, Scott, she says. Nothing will happen. I'm telekinetically keeping your optic blasts in check. I wanted to see your face, that's all. You have a good face. And the look that Byrne has given her is really a seductive look. And of course, it's not directed at the reader, it's directed at Scott. I don't believe it, he thinks. My eyes, how can Jean hold back all that power? The implication is, with the Phoenix Force, she's much, much more powerful than Scott. Jean, he says, and she stops him. Hush, no questions now, my love, no words. Fantastic colouring in the background as well from Glynis Wein. You can see that the sun is setting, and so we're getting these richer magentas as the time passes there. To nighttime, and there's a real implication that what happens next between Scott and Jean is that for the first time they are physically intimate. These pair that have been lovers since the beginning of the X-Men title, they're all grown up. It's there in the dialogue. What do they do up on that but this is our moment, she says. Let's not waste it. Night falls, a week passes. This is a great transition from Byrne. He did it in the previous issue with the standing figures of the X-Men in Chicago, from their costumes to their civilian gear. And this is cleverly done here, like in a film. Cut, the scene shifting eastward and 2,000 miles from the New Mexico desert to the man-made canyons of Manhattan. What a transition, really clever, excellent stuff. And there's a storm raging over the city and rain is pouring. Love all the details in the fine inking by Terry Austin, the raindrops and puddles on the sidewalk there. Such great detail. I love Glynis Wein's colours too, where we've got the cool blues of the rainy night in Manhattan and then the warm yellow coming from the entrance to the Hellfire Club mansion on Fifth Avenue. And down in a storm drain tunnel are the two sneakiest of the X-Men, and two pals, Wolverine and Nightcrawler. And so they're making their way covertly beneath the club itself. Water's rising, Nightcrawler says. Wolverine, holding a torch. We got much farther to go. And Nightcrawler says, crawling along the ceiling of the storm tunnel. My scanner says we're almost there, Wolverine. These power and communications cables all service the Hellfire Club. That place uses as much electricity as a skyscraper. I wonder why. And Wolverine retorts, beats me, Elf, but these cables give me an idea. And so he attacks them with his adamantium claws, taking Nightcrawler by surprise. But Wolverine has a definite strategy. Relax, Elf. All I did was strip the insulation off these power lines. When the water hits them, they'll short out, probably blow every light in the club. If something goes wrong tonight, a surprise blackout could come in handy. And notice as well, there's a storm, it's raining hard, the water will rise. This is also cleverly plotted. This is also Wolverine's own idea. It's not something that Cyclops has told him to do. He's thinking for himself. He's an adult. He's a former member of the Canadian military and Secret Service. So it's very much in character for him. Everything is so carefully thought out, so well done in this issue and subsequent ones. So Nightcrawler's impressed. Very nice, mein Freund. Very sneaky. I do my best, bub, says Wolverine. Nightcrawler to Cyclops. So Nightcrawler tells Cyclops that they're ready to make their move. They're in position. Roger, Nightcrawler, says Cyclops. This is a really great shot from inside the Rolls Royce, the X-Men's Rolls Royce, of everyone sitting in their respective seats. That's difficult to do. Everybody in civilian clothes, really well done. You can see the rain pouring down the windshield as well. Thanks to Angel, says Cyclops. We four have invitations to this bash. It's a little bit of expositional dialogue. Under false names, the White Queen's allies, whoever they are, should have no idea we're coming. Professor, if you haven't heard from us by midnight, we've run into trouble. So whose idea is this? Is it the Professor's? No, it isn't. He says here on the telly screen, Scott, I do not like the idea of you and the X-Men blithely walking into potential death trap. Neither do I really, says Cyclops, but I can't see any alternative. We have no hard evidence connecting the White Queen's outfit with the Hellfire Club other than the name. And we can't afford to make a mistake. We need proof one way or the other. If they do turn out to be the same gang, and if they're ready for us, at least you'll be safe in New Mexico. You and Angel will be free and able to deal with them. Wishes luck, Professor. Cyclops out. So this is Cyclops' plan. It's not the Professor's. Again, this is Claremont and Byrne showing us the X-Men are all grown up. There's no need for the Professor. He doesn't even have his psychic rapport with them. So he's not in contact with them. He can't advise them. They're on their own. By heaven, Angel, the Professor says, I won't even know what's happening until it's too late. At that moment, inside the foyer of the Hellfire Club, in arrives Peter Rasputin and Aurora Monroe. And I like the thought balloon that Claremont has given Peter. It's in keeping with his character and his background. I've never worn clothes as fine as this. They feel marvelous, he thinks. Yet it does not feel right to wear a suit that costs more than my father earns in an entire year. It has been too long since I've been home. I miss it more and more each day. So we could have had Storm's thought balloons, but instead Claremont goes with Peter's. I really like it. I think it's well done. And, it reminds us that the team is still relatively new. They haven't even been together a year. And Colossus is homesick. And he whispers to Storm, Aurora, even if I've heard of some of the people here, some of them are, even I have heard of some of the people here. Some of them are my countrymen. How could such as they plot the destruction of the X-Men? Now that's intriguing on a number of levels because, of course, Peter Rasputin is from the Soviet Union and his countrymen are supposed to be communists. So what are they doing in the Hellfire Club? It's kind of an implicit sidelight on the corruption of the Soviet Union and how some people did really well despite the ideals of that communist state. Lucky us, or rather Storm replies, that's what we're here to find out, Peter. We're both bait and trap. Lucky us, she concludes. Great shot there of the main hall of the Hellfire Club. Lots and lots of details again from Byrne in the art. No scrimping on the backgrounds whatsoever. And in the front entrance, there arrives now Cyclops and Jean. And Jean is in telepathic rapport with the other X-Men. Aurora and Peter inside Scott, they say all is well. I wonder how long that will last, says Scott psionically to her. And who is watching them except for the Hellfire Club's inner circle? Here we've Donald Pierce. He sees them on the security camera. And we're told in the third person narration, his companions are Shaw, Leyland, and Wingard. Together, they form the nucleus of the Hellfire Club's inner circle, a secret society dedicated to the acquisition of power in all its myriad forms. So we're getting a good look for the first time at Donald Pierce and Harry Leyland. We've seen them in silhouette before, sitting behind that table on their thrones. And Shaw says, what a pleasant surprise. Jean Grey and Scott Summers, Phoenix and Cyclops of the X-Men, because they know all about them. Pierce, search the club if they're here. The other X-Men can't be far away. And then he juts Wingard in the chest with his index finger. Wingard, for weeks now you've been boasting that Ms. Grey is yours, body and soul. Tonight is your chance to prove it. She can lead her attack on the X-Men. For your sake, I hope she succeeds. So there's a little bit of tension between Shaw and Wingard that we've seen in previous issues, particularly the last issue. Issue 130 rather. Meanwhile, in the main floor ballroom, I've mind scanned everyone in this room. They're all perfectly normal, thinks Jean. Or she's communicating that psionically with Cyclops. It's early yet, by the way. I like your dress, he says. I thought you would. Now, we've seen this dress before. It was the one she wore for their date on Christmas Eve in issue 98. So this is a callback to the Cockrum era from Byrne. And it's intriguing how Jean has modified the dress. We'll see that in the coming sequence. I thought you would, she says. And then who butts in except for Jason Wingard? Before either X-Man can protest, Jason Wingard gathers Jean in his arms and sweeps her away. And as he does, he reaches into Jean's mind and once more turns the clock back 200 years. So far as Jean is now concerned, she's Lady Jean Grey, and she is dancing with a man she loves more than life itself. And Cyclops is aghast. What the? He thinks to himself. And that's her husband, because Jean and Jason Wingard got married in the past, in the previous issue, in one of those time slips. And Cyclops here is horrified. That's Jason Wingard. This is a lot like what happened the night Jean and I first met Dazzler in issue 129. He moved in, said hello, and the next instant, he and Jean were kissing like long-lost lovers. And now, one look at him, and it's as if I don't exist anymore. I don't like Wingard, and there's more to my feeling than jealousy. So Cyclops knows, like he's jealous, but he is savvy enough and smart enough to know there's more going on in New Mexico. Jean told me about her time slips. So she hadn't told him to that point. So that night on the butt in New Mexico, they made love, it would seem to me, and also she confided in him in that moment, in that time of intimacy. So he knows about it. Random episodes where she found herself physically shifting in time, reliving the life of an ancestor, a woman married to Jason Wingard and hailed as the Black Queen of that era's Hellfire Club. I can't believe that these time slips and Jean's total fascination with this Wingard creep are a coincidence. And you're spot on, Cyclops. You're putting it together. Let's turn the page here. So Wingard takes Jean upstairs. He calls after her. She's ignoring me, he thinks to himself. What kind of hold does Wingard have over her? And now the revelation. And it is this. How charming the stalwart hero out to rescue his damsel fair, says Mastermind. Not this time, Cyclops. So Cyclops recognizes him. Mastermind, one of the original members of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and he's in shock. Also love the fact that Byrne has time and energy to give us that little portrait there in the background behind Cyclops's the profile of his head there. So much detail in this issue, and it all works. It doesn't interfere with the legibility of the panel-to-panel reading. And so Cyclops remembers the shadow from issue 130 at the end of it, but he was in a hurry with far more immediate worries on his mind, and so he made a mistake. I'd better get to Jean fast, he thinks, as he races up the stairs onto the landing. If she's under Mastermind's influence, But as he turns the corner, he is blasted by none other than Jean. So some kind of telekinetic blast. And Wingard says, magnificent, my love, but the Hellfire Club wants the X-Men alive in his Cyclops. Worry not, Jason. Had the Black Queen struck to kill, there would be nothing left of the lad but ashes. So there seems to be no affection in Jean anymore for Cyclops. And it's intriguing. Is her change of personality, her change of character total and complete? And the X-Men downstairs, Colossus and Storm, they both hear the man Cyclops' scream. That sound was one of Phoenix's energy blasts, says Storm. So they transform into their X-Men costumes and they race upstairs to rescue their comrade, and as Storm thinks to deal with whatever we've snared. And who do they see on the landing when they arrive, except for Sebastian Shaw, and he's stripped to the waist. And he easily takes a punch from Colossus, and then he, double punches Colossus off his feet. Colossus says, Lennon's ghost, my blow had no effect. Wrong, my tin-plated comrade. If anything, your punch has made me stronger than ever. So this is our first hint as regards Shaw being superpowered and potentially a mutant, and what the nature of his power might be. We'll get an explanation of it in due course in this issue. And then he leaps forward towards Colossus, and Colossus this time doesn't hold back. He kicks him, but again, it only makes Sebastian Shaw stronger. And Colossus thinks, no, Shaw's unharmed, faster and stronger than ever. So Shaw is easily swinging Colossus around and knocking him against the wall. Storm dodges Colossus's body, and she thinks, can't let Shaw get a hold of me. I'll use my elemental powers to create a pea soup fog around him. That should hide me. I don't want to leave Peter, but I have to find a way to warn Wolverine and Nightcrawler and Professor X. And Peter's armored body is too heavy to carry. Forgive me, little brother, she says. And Terry Austin uses a screen tone here to kind of give us a sense of that pea soup fog, with just a little spotting of blacks there on the side profile of Shaw, blundering around trying to find Storm. Elsewhere, down in the basement of the mansion, we're in mein Freund, says Nightcrawler. So far, so good. So it looks like Wolverine cut their way into the boiler room basement of the mansion. Any more news from Psycho or Genie? He asks Nightcrawler. 9, says Nightcrawler. Like you, I'm beginning to get worried. Could be nothing though. Excuse me, as the old saying goes, no news is good news. But who's this hiding in the shadows? Who could it be? Let's turn the page and we shall see. After we get past the advertisements, it is Donald Pierce, and he grabs super swiftly Nightcrawler by the throat, and Nightcrawler thinks grip like steel vice, can't breathe, and some sort of electrical field shooting through my body, can't concentrate enough to teleport to safety. So there's something strange about Donald Pierce as well. And Wolverine lashes at him with his adamantium claws and reveals wires in his arm. Cripes, you're a flaming robot, Wolverine exclaims. And it's interesting too to see, Wolverine has no qualms acting violently when his comrades are in danger. But Pierce is able to knock him into all of these crates. Donald Pierce is a cyborg, he explains, a cybernetic organism, part man, part machine, a living being with the power of a juggernaut. Wolverine is not cowed. Yeah, I know all about cyborgs. I almost became one myself, he says. You may be a $6 million man, bub, but when I'm done with you, $6 billion won't be enough to put you back together again. So you see the look on his face? No way is he scared at all. But another one of the Hellfire Club's inner circle faces Wolverine instead, and it's Harry Leyland, this obese man with a beard. And Wolverine is kind of amused. You're welcome to try and stop me, Tubby, at your own risk. So Leyland introduces himself. He says, your challenge is accepted, dear boy. Stop you I shall. So now we learn that Leyland has a superpower. What? I'm getting heavier, can't move, can barely stand. What's Fatso doing to me? I love that line of Wolverine's. It always makes me laugh, Fatso. Dear boy, says Leyland, you X-Men are not the only mutants in the world skilled in the use of their special unique abilities. My own talent involves mass. Simply by concentrating, I can increase the mass of objects and people around me. So Wolverine's weight is growing to the point that he smashes through the floors beneath him into the storm tunnels, the sewage tunnels beneath the mansion where he started off. He drops like a runaway rocket into a storm sewer buried deep beneath the club, and the impact when he finally hits the water is more akin to slamming full tilt into a steel wall. It leaves him stunned, barely conscious, and in the blink of an eye, he's swept away. But we can see too that the storm tunnels are filling up from all the water that's pouring down on this night in New York City as well. The water level has risen from what it did earlier. Remember what he set up with the prospective blackout coming. And what about Storm? How's she getting on? So she's flying around the mansion, and she's not able to get out of the windows because I tried blasting through these windows, she thinks, with my lightning bolts, but they had no effect. Some defensive system neutralized their power. And then she's grabbed by the ankle by Sebastian Shaw with a big grin on his face. I know every inch of this house, Storm. There's no way you can elude me for very long. So we're going to see now Storm versus Sebastian Shaw, and we're going to get an explanation of his power too. And so Storm isn't taken that easily. She kicks him in the head. If I can only break free for a moment, she thinks. Done it. No, he grabs her cloak. Shaw grabbed my cape. I've never seen anyone move so fast. And now we got the explanation. I like a woman with spirit, Storm, he says, but not too much spirit. You should have learned from Colossus's defeat. I absorb kinetic energy. The harder anyone strikes me, the more powerful I get. I told you before that if you yielded to me, I would be merciful, but you resisted. Now pay the price. And so this man is no gentleman, and he has Storm in a lock, her hand behind her back, and smashes her face right into the carpeted floor. And we've got that classic all red background from Glynis Wein, which is a signifier of a moment of violence or emotional intensity. And then Shaw drags Storm on the ground by her cape and goes behind these curtains. We've done well tonight. We've trounced the X-Men, he thinks, with no loss to ourselves, and none of the club's guests are the wiser. It's been a long time since I exercised my mutant ability. I'd forgotten how good it felt. And he continues thinking, this is really interesting from Claremont. You know, this guy who has been acquiring power by means of manipulation from the shadows and from behind that Hellfire Club Inner Circle table, has enjoyed the physical expression of his power and beating the X-Men physically. Perhaps the Hellfire Club should set its sights higher, he thinks. Today the X-Men, tomorrow the Avengers. I wonder, dare I match my power against that of Iron Man or Thor? And that's interesting to think. You know, if his power is to absorb kinetic energy, how would he do against Iron Man and Thor in a fight? You know, he's cock a hoop after his victory. Pierce says, when Shaw asks him about his arm, it was just a scratch, easily repaired, I'm fine now. And Wingard is also cock a hoop with his victory. Scratch, ha! Wolverine cut through your precious bionic arm like it was made of butter. And Jean, in her dominatrix Black Queen garb, says, Jason, we've just won a splendid victory. Why spoil it with harsh words? So she's all in for the betrayal and defeat of the X-Men. The Black Queen speaks true, Wingard, says Shaw. Be of good cheer or be silent. But this is great from Claremont too. He thinks privately as he tosses Storm onto the pile of defeated X-Men. This could be trouble. Wingard is deliberately provoking Pierce, but he's really challenging me. Wingard is as much a natural leader as I. Sooner or later, he'll make his bid to take over the Inner Circle, positive that so long as he controls Phoenix, our Black Queen, none of us will oppose him. And so he's thinking all of this, while Tessa here puts his what on earth is this called again? His robe. It's like a, I'm just going to call it a robe, and I'll push on with the review. He says, ours was a group effort, Wingard, a group victory. We all did our part. And I like this look on Wingard's face here. there is this kind of power struggle between the pair. Of course, Shaw, but just remember that it was my psychic seduction of Jean Grey that proved the key to our victory. We could have won without her, says Shaw. Is that so? Very well then, or rather, Pierce says it. Very well then, Pierce. I'll simply release my hold on her, see how long you last. So there is all of this jockeying for position within the inner circle, and that's great stuff from Claremont. Let's turn the page, get past the advertisements. And last page. So there's a toast here. Pierce, Wingard, that's enough. Both of you as chairman of the inner circle, I, Sebastian Shaw, propose a toast to the Hellfire Club and our Black Queen. Long may she reign. And then this look on her face there, you can see the smirk, the satisfaction, the smug satisfaction on Jean's face. Has she been completely turned, body and soul, to being Black Queen of the Hellfire Club? And then, as for our captured mutants, says Shaw, by the time we finish with them, the X-Men may well wish they'd perished with Wolverine. But just as he's speaking, Wolverine hasn't perished. Again, the waters are up in the storm tunnel. He grabs onto this piping, pulls himself out of the foul sewage. Okay, suckers, you've taken your best shot. Now it's my turn. One of the most iconic images in the history of the X-Men series. A fantastic image, and the prospect now of Wolverine alone against the Hellfire Club. And like I said at the beginning, we began high up in the air of New Mexico with Angel touching down. And of course, there's a rivalry between Angel and Wolverine as well. They're complete opposites. And we end with Wolverine in the sewage with excrement all over him. And his claws are out, shining somehow. There's maybe some light coming from a grill down on top of him. We've got the shadows on his body there from the grill, and then some light flashing on his claws. And just, you can imagine, like, readers at the time, unable to wait 30 days for Wolverine alone and out for payback and vengeance against the Hellfire Club. Just really, really great stuff. Something else I want to point out is, in this issue before concluding the review, is all the different costumes Jean has been wearing. Her Phoenix costume here and here, also the kiss with Angel there. This is a Jean that is quite, how will I put it, like sexy and assertive. Here turning up with the picnic basket, transforming into this civilian garb, this kind of bikini type outfit, seducing Scott, probably being physically intimate with him for the first time. That look on her face there, she is sexed up in this particular issue, and it's been happening because of Wingard's seduction of her. And then she's wearing the black dress that she wore on their date in issue 98. And of course he likes it, and there it is. It has the back, it's backless. It's exposed the skin of her back, but here is the little twist. It also has the front exposed, so we get to see her cleavage as well, whereas the dress that she wore on the first date didn't have that skin and flesh showing. So again, this is Jean, and then of course the transformation into the Black Queen with the dominatrix outfit. All of these outfits, they are created by herself, as Scott explained it in that thought balloon. Let me find it here. She changes her clothes by telekinetically rearranging the molecules of her outfit. So every time she does it, she's not putting on physical clothes. It's an expression of her feeling and her state of being. So there is all kinds of thoughtful, clever stuff going on in this particular issue, with callbacks to as far back as issue 98, if not further, by Claremont in the script. Really, really top-notch comics from Byrne and Claremont, and no surprise that it's the winner of 5 Eagle Awards. I should just mention as well here, before concluding the review, that we've got one page of letters, and you can see them here. We've got one correspondent who guessed that Jason Wingard was really mastermind from that silhouette. And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on another seminal issue of Uncanny X-Men, issue 132. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.